Awesome. 11:01. Let's get started, guys. Good morning. Thanks for joining Elite CISO's weekly webinar that I'm proud to say that we have been conducting every single week from past almost 3 years now. So really appreciate you guys taking out time every week, 11 o'clock and joining us. Today topic is going to be very interesting. Like the previous weeks, we have been talking about different topics and all. So zero trust is one of the most important topic or most talked about topics since the pandemic started, right? Now, when we adopt zero trust or when there's a new technology that is coming up, there's always a learning curve and it goes through a period where it matures, right? So that's what I think the team today from Palo Alto is going to talk about. The discussion is going to be around zero trust with zero exceptions, right? And the new term ZTNA 2.0 is something we are going to talk about for the very first time. I think industry has already digested ZTNA 1.0, like we started with zero trust. So we will find what is the weakness or what is the missing part in the adoption of zero trust when it started, when organizations started to roll it out. So Josefa and Vinay from Palo Alto, they will talk about what is the new, what are the new features in ZTNA 2.0 or what the new buzzword is all about, right? So that's what the core topic is going to be about from the agenda perspective. Quick introduction that we do from 11:01 to 11:05. Then we will have about 40-45 minutes Palo Alto session. So Josefa and Vinay will talk about zero trust and the improvement on top of the initial buzz, right? And then at the end, we will save about 10 minutes for question answer. We will have a CP password. I will share that. And then we will have Wheel of Fortune. The giveaway for Wheel of Fortune is going to be a sound bar. And last but not the least, every single week we give this challenge from past 3 years. And I still love the energy, guys, that you accept this challenge. What this challenge is about for those who are joining for the very first time. If you sit a lot like our panelists are sitting right now, if you sit, you might have foggy brain, you might get, weak abs and soft glute and everything, and you will not lose much energy or much calories. Instead, if you stand while you are attending this session, right, because we are in IT and security, we sit a lot. So if you're going to stand, you might have or you will have all these benefits. You will have less pain in your body. Your body posture will be better. You will feel better yourself. You will think sharper. So with this, why to sit for this next 1 hour and listen? Why don't you guys stand and attend this session? So that is what the challenge is. We don't want you to sit because sitting is like new smoking. OK, so if you accept this challenge, go to the chat and say yes that you're accepting this challenge. I don't think Josefa and Vinay are set up to stand and present. So it is OK. We will take it that you guys are sitting. That's absolutely fine. One more thing I wanted to check. Are there anybody else from Palo Alto who will answer the questions while the session is being done or being presented, or should we wait till the end for the Q&A? Josefa, how is it?
I think preferably wait till the end because a lot of things would get covered during the course and it will be good to have it in the end.
Awesome. Awesome. So we will wait till the end and then we will get to the Q&A. And I see a lot of people are sharing their energy, saying yes and accepting the challenge. So great. Kudos, everyone. 11:04. I will transfer it over to Josefa now for the session. Thank you very much, guys. Over to you.
Thank you, Vikas. I don't think I should have asked for a better segue. You touched upon some very fantastic point about what the industry is today and what are we looking at. Let me quickly share my presentation, take a quick confirmation, and then we should be good to go. Is it visible?
Yep, bright and clear.
Awesome. So again, thank you, Vikas, for a wonderful introduction, and hello, everyone. First and foremost, I hope everybody is doing fine, hale and hearty. And I'm very thankful for the time that you've given. I just heard that you've been doing this for the last 3 years every week. I think that's phenomenal. That's one case study that I'm going to use in wherever I'm presenting next. But amazing consistency and kudos to all of you. Today, we're going to talk about something which is very dear to not just our heart, but everyone's heart. I'm sure all of you have gone through this. So let's kind of understand where we are in this journey about work as such, right? A big shift has happened over the past 24 months, and that is the biggest statement, if I can utter, is work is no longer a location. It's an activity. right? Previously, we used to be in a location when we all said, I have to go to work. But guess what? Nowadays, when I take to my family, the statement that I use is, I am starting work, right? So it's not no longer that you have to be somewhere to start being productive. Uh, in fact, your family is right how I got used to it. And it's a funny thing, right? When my maid, she sees me on a call like this, and she's like extremely careful. She asks me with the signal that is the camera on. If it is on, she'll go down. She'll do her stuff, being very obnoxious. So everybody is kind of adjusted to what the new dynamics are. But let's understand what drove to this towards this situation, towards this huge tectonic shift. I think it's a combination of two things. Number one, apps are now everywhere, right? Most enterprises like yours have moved to a model where you no longer are consuming apps strictly at the data center. I mean, that days are gone. The app delivery model with SaaS, with the cloud, etc., is now truly hybrid, right? The vast majority of enterprises today utilizing some combination of private cloud, public cloud, internet, SaaS, and that's the new app delivery model, right? That's number one. The number two is the users. The majority of our organizations today have also adopted hybrid work. I mean, let's face it, even Palo Alto for now, we are completely flexible, like something we have called as flex work, wherein we are spending maybe partially 2 days a week at work, 3 days a week at home, and the choice is completely based on your decision. So it's this hybrid culture where there is everything is in between, right? So with this new work model, it affords a great deal of flexibility. I'm sure Vikas said not just flexibility in terms of where you attend from, but how you attend. Today I learned that standing up is far more beneficial. So that's how we have come to. But honestly, what does it mean from an IT perspective, right? What does it mean for you folks? How have we been through this journey and transition? Let me just quickly walk through it, right? So previously it was very simple, right? I'm going to walk you through this journey so you can relate. As Vikas said, where are we in this journey right now and what should we be looking at? So previously we all connected branch offices to data centers. That was the primary role of IT. You had to protect access to the data center, protect all the apps in the data center, as well as any app which is not in the data center, right? It's not that we didn't have SaaS and cloud those days, so internet SaaS, but by deploying security at the data center. So you use methods like proxy, intrusion prevention system, even cloud access security broker, antivirus, DNS security, so on and so forth, right? So in this model, you had a single fat pipe concentrated at a specific location where you could deploy and apply this massive stack and funnel all traffic through, right? But what we are seeing now is a very different model, right? What are we seeing right now is that model is shifting from a branch centric to user centric, right? So user is now being at the center of this, connecting to their application. And this is a dramatic shift away from the traditional model which had, obviously, while it has promised to give that connectivity and optimized experience, but it has also opened and increased our attack surface. Right now, the user directly is going through all the application that they need to and cared about work, whether in the data center, cloud, SaaS. So the location of app shouldn't matter, but what now matters is consistency and how do we give that optimized app experience, right? And now, the interesting thing is, if you now extend that model to your entire hybrid working force, as I said, somebody would be in office, somebody would be at home, somebody would be at the coffee shop, somebody would be at the branches. Now what you see is that the attack surface expands exponentially. And the more the attack surface expands and grows, the more you need both security and access control to protect enterprise apps and data. At the same time, we are also seeing the number of security tools that an organization have deployed to protect their same app and data has been exploded, right? Because what you're doing now is trying to solve those individual use cases across each of these users, depending on the location. And, while we struggled and people struggle, I think most CISOs reported that this has been the primary threat vector, managing all of these tools, which are adversely impacting both the incident avoidance as well as incident response to two major things, right? So to try to get a handle on this exploding surface is where the emergence of the first zero trust network access solutions came into being. Right? That's where the emergence came into being. And what did that do? Right? Very simply, the first as Vikas said, the first generation of ZTNA, let's call it ZTNA 1.0, right? The way this first generation ZTNA solution worked was when a user requests access to an application, they get connected to an access broker, and that access broker is supposed to verify whether the user should have access to that application and then grant access. After the connection is established, the access broker does an interesting thing, right? It kind of gets out of the way of that user interacting with that application. And this is the architectural model. This is the fundamental model of ZTNA 1.0, which came into being, right? However, I mean, there's always has to be an however, right? Yeah. What happened here was the way these first generation ZTNA solutions were designed or sort of or architected, there were fundamental issues in which they communicated. The first one, let's tackle, and there are 5 of them. Let's tackle these 5 distinct issues in how these 1.0 solution are kind of struggling right now. The number one is the 1.0 model. It violates the very principle of least privilege. Okay, this is a very, I would say, an oxymoronic statement that the very thing that these solutions were supposed to do, which is zero trust. When you hear zero trust, it implies that nothing is inherently trusted, right? The intent is to ensure that least privilege by connecting a user to an application and nothing else. In fact, all vendors who are offering these solutions in the market today talk a pretty good game about this very principle, arguing that instead of giving a broad network segment access, they are granting access to applications. But the reality, and this is where it starts getting a lot more interesting, is when you peel the onions. When a user requests an access to an app, this very solution translates that application into an L3 and L4 network constructs, so FQD and IP port. The problem with this approach is if you're defining modern applications by low-level L3, level 3, level 4 network constructs, you are constantly granting too much access, because there are many applications that utilizes large or a dynamic port ranges and stuff. So when you give access to these applications using L3, L4, you don't have fine-grained controls to explicitly imply what you want to give access to, which ends up users having much more access than desired. Let me throw in an analogy to make these 5 examples a lot more clear. Let's take an example of the airport. Right, when you reach the airport, you get your boarding card, and that is supposed to be your, let's say, an access broker. Now imagine you get your boarding card, which entitles that which aircraft you're going to tour. So imagine the aircrafts are different applications. So at least you've solved a problem that once you get access, you just can't go and sit in any plane. It defines which airplane you need to go to, so which application you're going. But imagine after you enter the aircraft, nobody checks whether you're sitting on your seat, right? Whether you're sitting on your right seat. So which means, can you move around? And if you go to, let's say, a business class or an economy, premium economy, that's what this kind of analogy builds up, right? There's no further check in terms of once you grant access, have you added too much access, right? And sorry, then that's how it is built up, right? So pretty much on what the second thing which comes in is the allow and ignore problem, right? This is the second issue, and what happens is in this allow and ignore method is once the access broker establishes the connection between the user and the application, all the traffic that session now initiates goes unchecked. If you assume that trust can be verified only once and not checked again, that's a recipe for disaster, because user behavior can change and the application could have been compromised, correct? And its behavior could also change. In fact, the reality is 100% of breaches that have occurred in the last 10, 15 years as a result of allowed activity. So many modern threats also ensure that they only piggyback on allowed traffic. I mean, that's the modus operandi, right? And the modus, and so that's to not trigger these alarms. And these 1.0 solution allow and ignore this very exact thing. I mean, and if I go back to the same airport example, imagine your boarding card, you get lost. After you've kind of entered the airport, you've checked in, got the boarding pass, and somebody else found it and picked it up. And because of the virtue that you were allowed, And imagine there was no further check. He's allowed to go and sit in the aircraft, assuming that nobody checks that identity. And that's why you have identity checks right at the gates as well in terms of mapping your UID and stuff. So that's the analogy I would put. Let's look at number 3, right? The third issue with this is once you get past allow and ignore, there is no application traffic inspection either, which is with allow and ignore, you are unable to react and respond to real-time changes in this user or application or device postures. So, without the security application or security inspection on that application traffic, you have no ability to identify nor respond to a malware or other things which have compromised that application or traffic. So these solution does they do a great job of creating and making that session and going out of the way, but that treat that session as trusted, and there's no further inspection or approach on that. There's no security efficacy which comes in, and security is through obscurity only. So that further puts organization at risk. And if I have to give you the same example of the airport again, I keep coming back is. Imagine you entered and you're a malicious intended user, and somebody after you entered the airport and before you boarded the plane, somebody asked, transferred you a firearm or something which is a harmful device, something which you can go inside the airplane, and once it takes off, you can do harm on, right? So once you're entered and once your luggage checked, we have to ensure that there's nobody else who kind of gives you contact and there are enough monitoring which is there. The fourth issue with this is they do not provide data protection, especially for private applications. Now, this leaves a very good portion of the organization traffic. This leaves a very good portion of the application traffic in terms of the organization being absolutely vulnerable to data exfiltration, right? Either from, and this comes from two parts, either from malicious insiders or external attackers. So this also forces businesses to deploy completely different DLP solution across their organization to protect the crown jewels, your sensitive data in private application. So imagine going back to the same example, you've kind of checked in, you've reached your destination airport, and you're now trying to take your luggage. And imagine if there are no cameras being placed and no monitoring being done, somebody else picking up, and you trying your hard to try to trace that. So all of these checks and balances ensure that at least there's the right alarm and there's tickets being mentioned on the luggage so that you check, and there are enough checks in the places till the time your luggage is bought from the aircraft to the places on the bag, so that nothing malicious happens with your good data, which in this case is your luggage. And the final issue is that and this is like really the icing on the cake, is that it cannot, this 1.0 solution, that one solution, one-stop shop cannot provide coverage for all your applications, right? Your cloud-based apps or other apps that utilize dynamic ports or server-initiated apps like, these popular ones, the help desk apps, right, which has a very, very different protocol to connect, where server-initiated connections are not supported by these, of course. So these 1.0 solution does not, sometimes do not support the way the SaaS apps work either, right? So when you look at modern web applications, that comprises a series of microservices. Today, it's a microservices-based architecture. Defining them on the basis of L3, L4, FQDN is again a recipe for disaster. So more and more applications that continue on their cloud journey are built out more out of the cloud-native architecture application. So ZTNA 1.0 really becomes challenging. And if I look at again the airport analogy, it is like saying that for accessing certain type of flight, certain type of planes, you need one airport, and if you are accessing a Boeing or a jumbo jet, you need to go to the other airport, right? That's not very efficient. So what do we have now? And with this big 5 challenges of the 1.0 approach, you may be wondering, how did it even get into the market, right? I mean, I'm sure that's the number one question that all of you are kind of buzzing in your head, that what are we talking here? So in reality, ZTNA 1.0 was introduced not 2 years ago or something. It was introduced 10 years ago, almost a decade back. And back then, the world was very, very different, right? Perhaps even more simpler to deal with. There, prior to that, there was VPN access was really all that was required, since apps were in the data center and most users were in office. ZTNA came across and tried to, in 2010, and tried to solve some of these problems with the VPN as users, and apps started moving outside the corporate office and data center. Now, in a world of hybrid work environment and hybrid network and hybrid workforces, where work is now an activity, as I said, there clearly needs to we have a new approach, and that new approach is what we're introducing as 2.0. Right? It's a paradigm shift. It solves these inherent 5 issues, which are absolutely necessary in this hybrid world. And that new approach, we are calling it as ZTNA 2.0. And there are 5 key capabilities which ZTNA 2.0 delivers, right? And let me kind of sum them up. And before I hand over to my colleague and they can take you through the solution, ZTNA 2.0 applies the principle of least privilege, where a user and their application, well defined, come together. Number 2, it delivers that continuous trust verification, which is so very important. Not allow and ignore anymore. If a user behavior changes, if the application behavior changes, if device portion changes, there has to be this continuous verification of trust level granted. Absolute must. Number 3, deliver this continuous security inspection on all traffic to protect against all threats and threat vectors, right? Security efficacy is the number one thing. I mean, that's what, end of the day, that's what we are here all for, right? Number 4, it protects all data and protects it in a consistent manner across not just your collaboration application, but modern-based application across everything, right? So there is consistency in that. And finally, it protects and secures all application across your entire enterprises. So that's the promise. That's the key capabilities that we bring to the market, and which is overcoming your existing 1.0 solution and providing some better security outcomes. So in the same airport example, I think we are bringing in enough checks, enough verification, enough ID checks at every level of that time where you enter the airport, get your boarding pass, to the time you get into your flight, sit in your designated place, reach your destination, and get your right luggage out. So that's the kind of analogy I would want to put it. And with that, I would want to pass it to my esteemed colleague, Vinay. Vinay, over to you. I think you are the man who can explain how you're doing it better.
Hey, thanks, Josefa. If you can continue to project the slide, that would be great.
Should I
Or you
continue
want?
that?
Oh, okay.
You can go.
Let me just take over the slide deck from here. I hope it is visible, my slide deck, to everybody.
I can't see. Josefa, can you see?
Not yet.
No, I can't. If you want, I can project again, Vinay.
Yeah, it would be good if you can.
Right away. Oh, sure. Let me know if you guys can see this.
Go to the slideshow mode.
Is it good?
Yeah, it's good now.
Yeah. So, Vinay, over to you. Just let me know when you want to go to the next slide. I'll share.
Sure. Okay. Thank you. Joseph, if you can just go back to the previous slide. I just want to, re-emphasize on the 5 points that you rightly mentioned. So I think, Josefa, you've very well defined what are the challenges that we see with the ZTNA 1.0 approach. But I just want to, re-emphasize that, whatever we are talking about from a ZTNA 2.0 perspective, I think these, irrespective of whatever product that you take in, I think these should be the guiding principle for anybody who wants to implement ZTNA in their environment, right? I don't think anybody can argue that least privilege access is not required, right? Similarly, continuous trust verification is required in the current environment, right, where the user identity, user behavior, device behavior, everything can change, right? Similarly, nobody can argue that you don't need security inspection for all your traffic. You can't have disjoint, islands of security. You can't have one set of security inspections for a traffic which is going towards your internet or SaaS applications, and another set of security inspections, or rather no security inspection for your private applications, right? That is not something which should be acceptable to anybody. Secondly, you need to protect all your data, irrespective of whether it is your private application or your internet applications, right? and securing all apps is also important, right? So these are the five basic guiding principles that we have taken into account when we have created our solution, which is Prisma Access. If you can just move to the next slide. Yeah, next slide, please. So Prisma Access today, I can proudly say, is the only solution in the industry that delivers ZTNA 2.0. And on top of it, it also delivers the best user experience. And it is a unified product, the only unified product available today in the market, which can consolidate all the capabilities, give you a single pane of glass to manage everything. And I will further elaborate on each of these points as we go through the slide deck ahead. And I would, request the audience to challenge us at the end if you have any questions. If you feel that, we are not meeting any of the ZTNA 2.0 parameters, or if you have an alternate view that, whatever we are saying as the guiding principles or the basic principles of ZTNA 2.0 do not apply, happy to get into that debate. Yeah, but let's first see how Prisma Access delivers ZTNA 2.0. So next slide, please. Yeah. So I'm sure whoever has followed Palo Alto, we were the ones who actually came up with the concept of app ID, user ID, and device ID. These were the basic three constructs on which we created our next generation firewalls, and we still incorporate the same user ID, app ID, and device ID capabilities into our Prisma Access solution, uh, and these capabilities are not something which is one and done, right? So when we look at an application, it is not an IP FQDN or port or protocol, right? We look at it on a signature base, right? So we identify applications natively based on signature, and this is something that we actually continuously monitor. The application handshake, the TCP packets, it's a stateful inspection of the application behavior that we continuously monitor, right? So there is a continuous uh, identification of an application which is stateful. Similarly, the user ID and device ID is something that we identify, and we continue to identify them. So to give you an example, right, we continuously do trust verification of the users. And say if you have different users who need different level of access, say a third party contractor versus an employee, you may want to just give a read access to a third party employee. Can you do that in the ZTNA 1.0 solution? No. It would be the same level of access that you would probably grant to every user, irrespective of whatever his profile is. You cannot really give a differentiated access, or the other way around, right? If you see that a behavior of a user has changed from the time his initial trust verification was done, in a ZTNA 1.0 solution, you cannot really revoke the trust level or the access of that user. In a Prisma Access solution, since it's a continuous trust verification that we keep doing, and we are able to take decisions based on dynamic behavior, the status change of the user, be it the user behavior, the application behavior, or the device behavior. So that's something which really differentiates Prisma Access solution, because it's not something that we do one and allow and ignore. Is not something that we do. We do a continuous trust verification. Similarly, from a least privileged access perspective, we are able to identify applications and give them a very granular access to the applications. By default, any access to our any access granted by Prisma Access is done at all, and we then give the access to the users based on layer 7 parameters, based on application that is allowed to the user, right? So it's a very granular identification of the applications based on which we allow least privileged access with a continuous trust verification of the user, device, and application that we do. And on top of it, once the access is allowed, it's not allow and ignore. As I said, we are continuously looking at and doing a security inspection of all traffic, the traffic going towards any of the destinations, be it your SaaS, internet, public cloud, private application, or your own data centers, right? So anywhere there is a continuous security inspection with the full suite of capabilities that we bring in through our advanced threat prevention, which looks at all the known threats, our wildfire solution, which is able to look at all the unknown threats, day zero threats, and effectively stop any data exfiltration attempts through our DLP solution, which is also again looking at all the traffic flows going towards any of the destinations. Now, all of these security inspection capabilities, of course, Huzaifa can sure talk about it from morning to evening. But just to give you some data points, right? So, Huzaifa, if you can just move to the next slide. The efficacy of this security stack that we bring to the table is something which is unquestionable. The amount of DNS threats that we are able to stop is 40% more than any of the other vendors which are there in the shop. So it's not a tick in the box capability when we talk of any security capability. The advanced URL filtering solution that we have, it stops 24% more phishing attacks. So if it is a very broad known URL etc., or a malicious web attack, most of the commodity solutions which will be able to identify it. But we use a lot of AI/ML in our advanced URL filtering, which is able to natively understand the behavior of these advanced threats, the web-based threats that are emerging, and are able to take action and stop these threats, right? And also, when you look at the zero-day attack, 95% of the zero-day attacks are stopped by a AI/ML engine. So you don't have to be first victim of a day zero attack, necessarily to have a signature of that, zero-day attack before you are prevented or stopped, or protected from that attack. We have the largest database of malware, right? Our wildfire solution, of course, is unbeatable when it comes to any zero-day threat which is there. And of course, we have 70,000 plus customers across the globe. So any zero-day attack, we are one of the first ones to really be able to see it across the globe and really create a signature. The other important point here is that when we see a zero-day attack, we create a signature, and almost in real time we are able to propagate across and protect and create a signature and propagate across all the devices that are installed, as well as Prisma Access, almost in near real time, which is a big capability differentiation compared to any of the other solutions which you would see in market. And I mean, from the number of threats that we block, 224 billion threats, right? The 4.3 million unique signature updates that we deliver every day, that speaks volumes about our security capability. So from a security inspection and security prevention perspective, I think there is unbeatable capability that Prisma Access brings in for you. If you can go to the next slide, please. Yeah. So when we are talking about data protection, it is consistent data protection that we can deliver to you. We can look at, as I said, we look at all traffic flows. It doesn't have to necessarily just be in isolation, that we just look at web data, or just the SaaS applications, etc. We can look at all data. We can actually prevent data exfiltration attempts happening on your private application access from the trusted insiders also, right? It's a single solution which can deliver complete data protection for all users, for all traffic flows. Yeah, that's again a big differentiation which is there. Now, and lastly, but most importantly, irrespective of what application you have, we support all ports, all protocols, all applications. With Prisma Access, we are able to protect all applications, as Josefa was mentioning, be it your cloud native applications which are composite in nature, right? So to modern cloud applications, if you really look at Zoom, right? Zoom is just not just a single application. Zoom chat is a sub application within Zoom itself, right? So if you write a policy, if you want to prevent something, are you able to write a policy saying that Zoom is allowed but Zoom chat is not allowed? Can you write or protect that kind of sub applications also? Can you do that granular control? I think that is something which is need of the hour, which most of these ZTNA or all of these ZTNA 1.0 solutions cannot really deliver to you. But this is something that we deliver. uh, be it your help desk, for example, right? I mean, you may need to take a RDP of your remote device. The help desk may need to take that, or you may need to push updates to your remote devices. How do you do that in in the with the ZTNA 1.0 solutions, they will obviously ask you to use a third-party solutions like VPNs or other solutions to do those use cases, to meet those use cases. But I think that's not the way modern enterprises want to look at it. You need a unified solution which can support all your applications, be it your VoIP applications, the server-initiated applications, right? The collaboration applications, the sub applications which are there in composite cloud applications. So Prisma Access is the only solution which can support all your applications and all your traffic flows with all ports and all protocols visibility. Yeah, if you can move to the next slide. Yeah. So yeah. So what we are also doing now is we are actually doing delivering something, something very unique in the industry, which is called ZTNA connector, and this is very different from the broker architecture that you would have seen. So if you are aware today, we expose the data center applications over secure IPsec tunnels. That is one of the methods of exposing data center applications to Prisma Access Service. We are also now going to bring in a ZTNA connector, which will continue to deliver on all the ZTNA 2.0 parameters, which includes continuous trust verification, continuous security inspection, supporting all data center applications, and at the same time it will be able to do application discovery of all the applications that you have on the right hand side, and allowing organizations to connect users to an application, right? Rather than connecting users to a network or a segment of the network, right, which the traditional solutions would have given. So this is another unique offering that we are bringing in, which gives more flexibility in terms of how you want to onboard your applications onto the Prisma Access Service. Yeah, moving ahead. Yeah, the next point which I spoke about initially was that Prisma Access delivers the best user experience in the industry, and this is backed by the best industry leading SLAs that we deliver. So we deliver 5 nines of uptime, the lowest latency of security processing, 10 milliseconds, which is 10x better than any our nearest competitors, and also which is something unique that we deliver SaaS performance SLAs. So if you are using SaaS applications like O365, G Suite, Slack, SFDC, Box, etc. today, we are the only ones in the industry who give you a latency SLA for access to these SaaS applications. And why we are able to deliver it? Because we have natively built an architecture which is cloud first, which is able to give you the most optimal path to your applications. So and I'll just elaborate a bit about it in the next slides. Huzafa, if you can just move to the next slides. Yeah. So the cloud scale architecture that we have built in by partnering with the best clouds that are available today, right? Be it GCP or AWS, right? We have partnered with these two cloud providers, and we are able to deliver a cloud scale architecture across the globe, irrespective of where your users are, where your data resides. We are able to optimally connect the user to the application using the highly available backend infrastructure of these cloud providers. And we have completely natively built Prisma Access on modern cloud-based architectures like microservices, which allows us to horizontally scale this infrastructure based on the needs of the customer. So for us, every customer instance is a separate data plane instance, right? So that is another big differentiation that we bring in. Any cloud service that is available today has to ensure that every customer operates in a multi-tenanted environment. Unfortunately, the ZTNA 1.0 vendors which are operating, they really do not offer you this capability. They commingle the data plane basically. So the data plane is shared between multiple customers, which means that any noisy neighbor can impact your application access and performance, which is completely done away with in our architecture. Huzafa, if you can just go to the next slide, I can explain this better. Yeah. So if you can see here, right, this is something that we have seen in the industry. there are multiple examples where what has happened is that, to take an example here, if there is a retail customer, who's sharing the data plane with another enterprise customer or a banking customer, and there is a big billion day sale, for example, and suddenly the retail customer starts hogging more resources, and the other customers who are sharing the data plane, are starved for resources in this architecture. And also from a security perspective, this is not something that is really advised, or for the customers, because the activity of one customer can bring down your access, right? So there can be a denial of service, which can impact because of the unhygienic security practices of the other customer, right? So because what happens is, when you share data plane, the egress IP is also shared between multiple customers. So if one customer does not follow the hygiene on internet, that can bring down the reputation of the that IP, and it can bring down the access for all the customers who are sharing that data plane. And there are multiple examples of this which has happened. I'll take questions at the end. So Sumit, if you can just wait till that time. Yeah. Josefa, if you can just move to the next slide. Yeah. Now, another important differentiation which really ensures that we are able to deliver on the best user experience promise is our ability to give you native visibility into all the user experience parameters, right? So, if you can just move to the next slide. We have introduced something called ADAM, which is Autonomous Digital Experience Monitoring, which is natively part of our Prisma Access solution, which means that the agent which we install doubles up as a telemetry agent, and it is able to collect a lot of information about the user, the device, the network through which he is accessing, and all that information is available to you as an organization to proactively look at whenever there are even before the customer issues happen, right? So, Joseph, if you can just move to the next slide. Yeah. So if you really look at the whole value chain of access for a remote user, uh, the user basically, Joseph, you can just, yeah, stay on this slide. Yeah. So when a user is trying to access any application, say in this example, a SaaS application like O365, there are a lot of touch points for him, right? So the user device itself becomes one of the problem areas sometimes. The Wi-Fi, the router, the ISP through which the user is connected, the Prisma access, which is the security fabric, or it could be the last mile of connectivity between Prisma access and the SaaS application, or the SaaS application itself could have issues whenever user is experiencing issues. Prisma access can give you end-to-end visibility for you to be able to isolate where the issue lies, right? So you have a global view of the organization in terms of how any application is performing, as well as you have individual user view also in terms of how a user is specifically having experiencing an application. To give you an example, a lot of times what happens is, if a C-level guy is traveling somewhere to another country and trying to access from a hotel an application, and he suddenly says that my access is not working, and IT has no clue how to solve that issue, because probably the user could be sitting in the hotel room where the Wi-Fi signal is very weak, or it could be the Wi-Fi network itself is weak. The ISP through which he is connected could have issues, or the application could have problem. This tool allows you to get instant visibility, and you are able to isolate where the issue really lies. So your mean time to resolution becomes much faster. What we have also done now, which we are introducing next month, is the ability to proactively deliver these capabilities to the user also. So there is proactive alerts that can go to the users in terms of telling him that, okay, the user, you might experience issues because you have too many open windows on your desktop, which is eating up a lot of memory and CPU on your device, or you are sitting in a low Wi-Fi network area. Please move to a better Wi-Fi area. So these kind of proactive alerts is something that we have now been integrated into the ADAM, so that your workload, or rather the number of tickets that users open for the help desk, can also be reduced, and users can proactively take care of issues at their end. Zephyr, if you can just move to the next slide. Yeah. And to top it all, this is ultimately the true SASE solution which can deliver on consolidating multiple capabilities with delivering best problem avoidance, best detection capabilities, and best automated remediation capabilities from a single unified platform. So, be it your, if you can just move to the next slide. So, uh, instead of having a fragmented control points like a zero separate private application access, a private swig, a separate CASB capability, and a separate firewall engine to protect your user and data and manage them separately. Prisma Access truly delivers a single management interface, a single consolidated solution which can give you unified management, unified policy, and unified data. So when I say unified data, it is also very important to understand, right? When you have fragmented solutions, you really do not have the rich context that is required for you to do any troubleshooting or automation, right? Prisma Access normalizes the data for all accesses, be it your access to your web applications, to your private applications, or to your SaaS applications, which offers you a rich context for you to take any decisions for automation or for threat detection and response. If you can just move ahead, we're just coming towards the end. We can take all the questions at the end. Yeah. So this is truly a single management interface, truly revolutionary, thing. If you really look in the industry today, which offers you management, single management for Prisma Access, which delivers you, as I said, the ZTNA capabilities, the SWIFT capabilities, the CASB capabilities from a single platform, as well as the SD-WAN capabilities from a single management console, right? Huzafa, if you can just move to the next slide. Yeah. Now, the question is, how can you start on this ZTNA 2.0 journey? We understand that there are a lot of brownfield environments in which we have to operate. So we are not really saying that you have to rip and replace everything if you want to start on this ZTNA 2.0 journey. So you can start with any of these projects, right? A lot of we have seen customers starting with one of these projects, and over time probably expanding the scope of this ZTNA 2.0 journey to cover all the other areas. So you could start with VPN replacement as a project. You could start with Swig as a Swig replacement as a project, or you could just look at CASB capabilities to start off with, right? So any of these capabilities could become the starting point of journey for adopting Prisma Access and getting onto 2.0 journey with us. Yeah. So Josefa, yeah. So yeah, this is my last slide. Before I take questions, I mean, just of course, there are multiple industry acknowledgements that we have received. The analyst, evaluations that are here. We are leader in the, of course, the ZTNA first ZTNA wave that Forrester has released. We are the leaders in SWIG report from Frost and Sullivan. We are the leaders in Gartner's Magic Quadrant for next generation firewalls. We are a challenger in the first SWIG, SSE report that Gartner has come out with the second best capability to deliver in the market today. And lastly, of course, we are the leaders in the SD-WAN space today also. Yeah. Thank you. So this was my last slide. Happy to open up the channel for questions.
Great session, Vinay and Josefa. I think we learned a lot about ZTNA 2.0. Great. So let's open for Q&A. Please, guys, raise your hand and I will unmute you and you can ask your question. First one, let's go with Dr. Rajan. Dr. Rajan, go ahead, unmute yourself. Dr. Rajan is joining us from Chennai. We had a great run as part of Elite Fit over the past weekend. So yeah, it was amazing. Go ahead, Dr. Rajan. Dr. Rajan, you are on for the question. Okay, let's go to my very good friend Sumit Bhai. Sumit Bhai, go ahead, ask your question now.
Yes,
So, Dr. Rajan, we'll take your question after Sumit.
Am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible.
All right, perfect. So my question to Vinay is basically, well, uh, I just would like to know whether if the ZTNA 2.0 strategy or concept is applicable or rather advisable, or is either also meant for the applications or users in OT and ICS environment.
Yeah. So today, you're talking about OT environments, right? The manufacturing
Yes.
environments with OT, right? So that's a great question, right? So today we already support IoT devices on Prisma Access. So we offer the capabilities to identify the IoT devices and give them a differentiated treatment and control that is required for them to access, say, internet or the other applications. We are able to identify that, and that is getting enhanced further. So,
Correct.
Huzafa, you
So
want to
is it?
add anything on top of it?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I just only curious to know whether it is part of your Prisma Access practices, basically, or the
Correct.
solution.
It is. So the
Okay.
OT subscription is part of the IoT subscription is part of Prisma Access.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
Great. Dr. Rajan, go ahead, ask your question now.
Happy morning, happy morning, happy morning. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible,
Hello?
sir.
Okay, thank you so much. Thanks for the no nice session, because we were really able to differentiate between the version 1.0 and 2.0. Okay, I've got a couple of couple of observations and queries. One, now I'm thankfully acknowledging the release of zero trust architecture from NIST, because that's something which is going to really pave.
Sir, we lost you. Yeah,
Yeah. I
he's
think.
out of session, I believe now. Udit bhai, go
Yeah.
ahead, ask your question now.
Yeah. So just to answer that question, I think his question was he was asking about the NIST framework, which is there for zero trust. Yeah, we have a white paper which clearly identifies how Prisma Access aligns with the NIST framework. We can share it if required. Yeah, that's it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Rajan, you are back, but let's wait. I think there's some problem with your connection today.
Yeah.
Rajiv R. Mr. Rajiv
No,
RG,
I'm
please go ahead,
unmuted.
ask your question.
Hello,
Yeah, Mr.
Vikas,
Rajiv, go ahead.
I am unmuted.
Okay, so Dr.
Yeah,
Rajan, you
this
wanna
is
ask your question
there.
again?
See, okay, I'm sorry about it. The call got dropped because there is an internet reboot. Fine. Okay. I think you would have aligned a solution against this NIST standard. Okay, that's not a question. The question is, see, customers like us who have got already an SOAR solution.
Yeah.
What does your solution reside? Because there's going to be I'm worried about the manageability of these solutions when customers have grown to a maturity level 4 between on a 5 scale. When you have
I
a
think.
SOAR solution, where does your solution reside?
Yeah, Josefa, you want to take this?
Yeah, so first of all, I love the energy, Doctor. I mean, you have such a vibrant voice and so much energy. It feels good to kind of take the questions also. So I would say, Doc, SOAR and the solution Zero Trust Network Access are absolutely complementing, right? One gives you the tools and resources to kind of ensure that all the parameters that we spoke about in terms of your secure access service edge across hybrid application, across the location, respective users are taken care of. Source lies on top of that and ensures that all your orchestration and automation, which needs to go in from an incident response perspective, incident management perspective, how can you automate, not just restricting to this solution, but it expands across your XDRs, your endpoints, your network security, your cloud. It's an amalgamation of all of that. So I would say it's complementing and exactly the reason what you said, right? It's all about how do you help the users like you to kind of orchestrate and automate and drive an autonomous SOC. Because at the end of the day, it's all about reducing the mean time to detect and mean time to response. I hope I answered your question.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you. Then it's a customer choice to evaluate and see whether the complementary solution is required or not. Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah. Yeah. So just to add on to that point, one of the important, points for any automation that you want to bring in the organization is how do you normalize the data from different sources which are there, right? And that is where, Palo Alto architecture of having a centralized data lake where we have all the logs becomes a very important parameter. So Prisma Access, is able to provide logs into Cortex data lake, which can also take in logs from third-party firewalls, from your endpoint security solutions, XDR solutions, etc. Give you a centralized repository for you to be able to have data in one place, and then on top of it you can actually do the automation which Josefa really spoke about.
So great question and great answer. So we have only 4 minutes left. Maybe we can take two short questions and short answers, please. So Mr. Rajiv Arji, go ahead, ask your question quickly, please. And you have to be fast enough. Anagat sir, go ahead, ask your question. Anagat Chief, you got to unmute yourself. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yeah, Josefa and Vinay, very good presentation. What I found really interesting was that in 2.0 was the SaaS kind of applications, because today customers really go for ZTNA because they want to replace VPN. But I think this is the next step. So there's no access broker required. How does that work then?
Sorry. Yeah, in our case, we are not dependent on any access broker, right? So we have an agent which is able to connect securely to our cloud platform, to the nearest gateway which is available, and the onboarding mechanism. We support multiple onboarding mechanisms for the users. It could be an agent based, where the agent can create a secure tunnel to onboard itself onto the Prisma cloud, Prisma Access cloud, or it could be a pack file based approach. Also, we support explicit proxy route also, so that the user can actually onboard itself to Prisma Access using a pack file. We also have a clientless access mechanism, right? So you can just using a browser. Also, you can connect to a portal and authenticate yourself, and onboard and access the application through that method. So we don't really need a connector. We support multiple methods of onboarding a user in a secure manner. Of course, you get the best and the most optimal controls with an agent. But yeah, we do support the other methods of onboarding the users also.
Awesome. Let's take the last question from a very important person who has just cleared his CISM exam today. He got the news today. Exam was cleared earlier. So Udit Bhai, congratulations. Go ahead, ask your question. Guys, give him a lot of round of applauses on the interface itself for clearing the exam. Go ahead, Udit Bhai.
Thanks, Vikas. Thank you, everyone. So Josefa and Vinay, my question is very basic. We are starting on an IT OT segregation for all our networks. So we present about 22 locations in India. We already have Palo Alto as our firewall and security gateway. We have just taken up subscription for Prisma. So would you have any specific tips for the IT OT part with respect to Prisma? For the applications, we are clear. The number of applications we run, whether they are on-prem or they are SaaS.
Vinay, you want to answer? Sure.
Yeah. Sorry. So I just want to understand if I repeat if I understood the question right. You're saying that you understand how Prisma Access works for the on-prem applications and the other applications. You want to understand if there are any best practices or for the ITOT part, right?
Yeah, the operations tech. So essentially, we are segregating our manufacturing network and our non-manufacturing network. Typically, these days it is referred to as IT and OT, right?
Correct.
So we want to deploy, the same level of security even in the OT network, although that does not have much of applications in it.
Yeah.
So
So that
is the point of clarification.
Correct. So we support organizations in having consistent security across the enterprise, and hence, if you really look at it, we offer enforcement points across the enterprise, right? So you could have an on-premise next generation firewall, which could also give you the IT and IoT support to help you segregate and give the same level of controls from an on-premise controls perspective. The same capabilities are also delivered from Prisma Access, which allows you to consistently deliver the same policy and control to your devices, the IoT devices from a Prisma Access cloud connectivity perspective also. Joseph, I hope I'm able to answer this. Or you want to add anything more to this? Right?
No, I think you nailed it. And the only thing I would add, number one, obviously, congratulations, Udit. Great news. First up. The second thing I would probably add is what Vinay said. The most important thing when you come from a best practices perspective is your ability to automatically detect in terms of the protocols, watching the protocols being exchanged, what that OT is, what are the specific threats surrounded towards that OT, and finally, how do you give us, when I said consistent policy from an admin one framework perspective to also take care of that specific OT device and threat specific to that. So I think I would probably put it at that in terms of best practices and take it up.
Great. Thank you, guys. I'll have to rush now because it's already
Thank you.
12:01. People have got meeting planned and everything. There are still a lot of people have raised hands. So I'm sorry, guys, we cannot take more questions. I will go on a supersonic speed. If you still want to ask your question, put it on the chat. Palo Alto team will capture the question and they will respond back to you over the email. Now, guys, if you want to download your participation certificate that looks like this, what you got to do is go to the Elite CISO website. Click on events, click on upcoming events, and then click on CPE certificate. Once you click on it, this will take you to a Google form. Put your email address, put your full name, and the password to download the certificate is SYFIRMA, SYFIRMA. I put it on the chat as well. SYFIRMA is the password. And you will ask why SYFIRMA? Because next week we are having a in-person physical session with SYFIRMA. We in fact had a webinar last week and Saurabh had presented phenomenal speaker. What a great energy he has. And he kind of shared a lot of details around external threat posture management, right? So that's what the session was last week. And again, Saurabh is flying from Singapore for this in-person session in Bangalore. So if you are based out of Bangalore, guys, go ahead and register for this session. Lately, we are doing a lot of physical sessions, right? This session was in Pune last week on Friday. Then we did this amazing Elite Fit event in Chennai on Sunday. So we are kind of moving to physical events as the things are opening up. That does not mean that we will not have a session next week, the webinar. So Thursday, 11 o'clock, again, we will have a webinar. I have not posted the details yet because I wanted to have a focus on the physical session first. So next week, we have a session with a very impressive company called Offensive Security. I'm sure you would have heard about OSCP certificate, which is the king of certificates when it comes to the cybersecurity certs. So we will have Offensive Security presenting and talking to Indian CIOs and CISOs, I believe, for the very first time. So stay tuned. I will send the details for the registration. Now, last but not the least that everybody is kind of waiting for is the Wheel of Fortune. So we will have 3 sets of Wheel of Fortune, one for everyone who registered, second for folks who liked the Elite CISO post on LinkedIn, and third one for the specifically Chennai chapter members, because we had a phenomenal run over there and our local chapter admin Sarvana said, why not have a spin for Chennai chapter? So we will do that as well. So I'm going to spin it now. If your name comes, go to the chat and say yes. We will monitor the chat. If you joined after 11:30 a.m. and your name comes, you are not eligible for it, right? Because we see a lot of people joining around 11:50, 11:55 just to be lucky. So I'm going to spin it now. Guys, watch for your name. If your name comes, go to the chat and say yes. The first one goes to Soumya Majumdar. Soumya from Concentrix. Soumya, if you are there, go to the chat and say yes. We will monitor the chat. Now I am going to remove all these people from here. And I'm going to add the people from the LinkedIn post, all the people who like the LinkedIn post of Elite CISO regarding Palo Alto webinar. I'm going to spin it now. Again, if your name comes, go to the chat and say yes. Second one goes to Sujoy Chief from Delhi chapter. Sujoy Dada, if you are there, go to the chat and say yes. And let me spin it one more time because we do 2 spins for LinkedIn. OK, so I'm spinning it for the third one now. And the third one goes to Oh, very nice. Sarvana Kumar from Chennai. Awesome, Sarvana. Sarvana was instrumental for the Chennai run, right? So kudos, Sarvana. Congratulations. I am going to remove all this list now and going to paste the people from Chennai. Oh, sorry. So the previous one I posted was the Chennai list. So luckily from Chennai, Sarvana run. Now Sarvana won. Now this is from the LinkedIn. Hold on. Vijay, no. So that was right. Previous one was LinkedIn. This is for Chennai because only 30 people out there. So I'm going to run it once for Chennai people. Little confusing. Okay, so Gopi LS from Chennai chapter. Gopi, if you are there, go to the chat and say yes. I will monitor the chat just after the session and see who the winners are. Let me quickly take a peek. Sarvana, any which way is there? I don't. So Joy is there. Awesome, great. Congratulations, guys, with this. Thank you everyone for joining in. Thank you, Josefa. Thank you, Vinay. Great session on ZTNA 2.0. I'm sure we will have more such sessions in future. We will also post the recording on EliteCISO website because it's a very new concept and people would like to understand what differentiate from the initial version of ZTNA to ZTNA 2.0. Okay, guys, thank you very much. Sorry, we are 6 minutes late. Bye for now. See you guys next week. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.